well, I'm going to take a leaf out of Robert's book and introduce Ed Vaizey as a wonderful human being. I think that's a really good way to introduce everyone nowadays. So now, thank you, Robert. No, but seriously, Ed was the longest serving culture minister in British history, serving for a long, long time, didn't you? And you introduced...
A long, long time.
Yes. And many of us think you maybe should have
long
gone
time
a
ago.
little higher. But anyway, but among your long, long time, you did introduce the incredibly important, I know, something Pippa feels very strongly about, audiovisual tax reliefs, among many other things. Can I just, before I start questioning him, can I just say, so far, I think this has been a brilliantly curated event, because we've heard... No, because we've heard from so many different angles, and Dr. Ogilvie, Hockney, collaboration means compromise. I mean, what a brilliant thing to say, but it also means success. So anybody around here who's thinking about supporting Marlow, compromise means success. Collaboration, compromise, success. But anyway, I'm not here to speak, he is. So I want to ask you, Ed, first of all, what you learned from your many years was the importance of this particular sector.
Well, thank you, Jane. I think you're a wonderful person. I like this microphone. You're a wonderful inquisitor. I was the longest serving culture minister in history. I held on for grim death. I had to beat the first ever culture minister. It was a woman called Jenny Lee, who was appointed by Harold Wilson. And I got a letter from David Cameron to congratulate me on beating the record. It was a letter which I dictated and sent to him and got him to sign. And it's framed alongside the letter from the chief whip taking the whip away from me for opposing Brexit. So I have a little...
collaboration and compromise.
And one of the reasons I served so long is because politicians don't take culture seriously enough. There's an anecdote about a previous culture minister called Richard Luce, who was culture minister under Margaret Thatcher. And he stopped the chief whip in the corridor one day and said, Willie Whitelaw, I hear there's a reshuffle going on. I'd really like to keep my job. And Willie Whitelaw said, don't worry, she doesn't even know you're there. But we went on a journey, rather like the exponential graph that Richard showed at the beginning, of I think the creative industry is being taken more and more seriously, and it was hard pounding, it genuinely was, because when we took power in 2010 as the coalition, Jane, I remember a Tory Treasury Minister coming up to me and saying, these film tax credits, we don't believe in that kind of stuff, we're going to get rid of them. And I'd already assured the film industry before the election that if we came to power we would keep the film tax credits, but it was a battle to keep them, and it was a battle to get the video games tax credit and the TV tax credit through the Treasury as well. Treasury doesn't like these kind of things, and in fact George Osborne went out of his way in his first budget to say the video games tax credit was a silly idea. But the fact is that these are global industries that can locate anywhere in the world, and governments do, I'm afraid, need to provide incentives because it's a highly competitive landscape. And they also, to a certain extent, need to provide incentives because it's a risky business. You are not guaranteed in the same way perhaps you might be guaranteed in other industries of getting a return. You put a lot of upfront investment and it can belly flop. So the tax credits act as an incentive. So I think that they have been wildly successful, far more successful than I think anyone envisaged, including me. And I felt pretty vindicated. I think there was one moment, sort of 2017, 2018, when the UK avoided a technical recession. And if you looked at the figures, the blip that kind of got us over the line to sort of 0.3% growth was the contribution made by the film and TV industry. So I'm very pleased we've fought the fight both internally in government and perhaps externally. And I think we haven't cemented Britain's position because it's always a constant fight. As I say, it's a competitive landscape. But I think we've got to the stage where people do understand the huge economic impact that the creative industries and the audiovisual industries make in this country, quite apart from their cultural importance.
So, what is your reaction? Because unfortunately, you are no longer a minister, to the rumours that these tax breaks are under threat, and what influence do you have?
Well, first of all, on the status point about no longer being the minister, I am now the president of Marlow Film Studios, despite Robert attempting to rewrite history and put me down as chair of the advisory committee. I am El Presidente, so that takes care of the status point. But on the tax credit point, I don't know, I mean, funny enough, we had questions about this in the House of Lords only this morning. To be careful what it is always a numbers game to a certain extent, and the Treasury will always run the ruler over these kind of things. But you have to be very, very careful what you wish for. If you think you're going to save some money by tinkering with the tax credit, you are probably making a very big mistake, because the film studios look very, very carefully at where they can get a return. I'm afraid they're pretty ruthless. There are lots and lots of reasons why, in particular, obviously the US studios come and make their films here. And they do it for financial reasons, because the tax credit is generous. And importantly, it's certain. It doesn't change. They know exactly how to budget to make a film in the UK based on the certainty of the level of the tax credit. And if you start moving it about, that creates uncertainty, which you don't want. The other reasons they love it is because, obviously, as Jeremy Irons said in the video, the quality of the people who make films in the UK, the technicians and so on, is pretty hard to find anywhere else in the world. That ecosystem is pretty unique. But you tinker with the tax credit at your peril.
And can I just say, Marcus, congratulations on your journey. But I think, can you hear me without my, yeah. I do think we all agree that there is this wonderful world out there with loads of people wanting to be part of it, and people like Pippa not being able to fill the jobs. And there is a problem, isn't there, Ed, about our education system and our careers advice. And why is it, after all these years, that it is not understood that what should be encouraged in our education system is STEAM? Is that all right if I use that acronym, not STEM?
Yeah, I mean, I set up, before I stopped being an MP, I set up the All-Party Group for Creative Diversity, which is to obviously support and encourage diversity in the creative industries. And we had a meeting yesterday, but it also became a much wider discussion about encouraging people per se to have careers in the creative industries, and whether teachers understand how successful our creative industries are and what the opportunities are. That's not disparaging teachers, it's simply a case of broadcasting what these industries are doing and what the roles and jobs are. And that cuts across all of them. We had a wonderful person from the Royal Shakespeare Company talking about how they have pre-apprenticeships, which cost about £600 a year per pupil, but this is kids aged kind of 12, 13, 14, really being embedded with the Royal Shakespeare Company and completely understanding the kind of range of roles that exist in a creative organisation like the RSC. So I think, in particular, the work that Robert and co at Marlow are doing in terms of focusing on education is vitally important. I think on a wider level, I'll try not to disappear down a rabbit hole, the barrier between business and education has to be as porous as possible, because the industries of the future and the industries of today, like the film industry, are highly technical industries where the technology is changing all the time. Somebody else in the reel, I think it was Jeremy Irons again, talked about the US wanting to come over here and do visual effects. We actually introduced a tax credit for the visual effects industry as well. So these are highly technical industries as well as being highly creative industries. And we need to start very early with young people explaining what the opportunities are and make people aware of the huge range of jobs that you can do when you say you work in the film industry.
And Pepe, you mentioned your experience of being places to make productions being snapped up, and I know that Steve McQueen has also experienced this. So our British born creators just don't have enough space. I think there was something again that was instituted under you, Ed, which were clusters. Could you talk a little bit about that and how that fits into the Marlow?
Well, the point about clusters is that politicians, British politicians, constantly moan about not having, to a certain extent, what the Americans have. So, one of the great cliches in politics is, Britain needs its own Silicon Valley. But we actually do have our own Silicon Valley, which is a triangle between Cambridge, Oxford, and London. And certainly Britain doesn't need its own Hollywood, because South Bucks is effectively the Hollywood of the UK. And the cluster effect is really important, and Robert's slide showed that. Everyone is human, and people want to come and work in places which have, everything they need. As I said, the ecosystem in terms of workforce and skills that you can tap straight into. But also, frankly, the stars want to have a good time, and they want to be based in London. And I always find it very odd in this country that politicians get off on doing down London. London is the world's only kind of global city, in my view, and it's a fantastic engine for the UK economy. And that combination is fairly unique around the world and hugely attractive for people to make the inward investment. The Warner Brothers studio was the first kind of Hollywood studio built outside Hollywood in 100 years. And you need to constantly invest in your infrastructure to show people that you're still serious about attracting the inward investment. There's constant innovation in the industry, which is why new players like Marlow, I think, are so important. You need competition. People need choice between the different studios that they're going to use, and the studios themselves need to effectively compete against each other to continue to offer the best opportunities for filmmakers and high-end TV makers to come here. And that's why the cluster effect is so powerful. Clearly, there are other clusters around the UK, places like Northern Ireland, places like the north of England, for example. But the London West cluster is fairly unique, but you can't sit on your laurels, and you constantly have to invest.
Thank you. I think. Are you up for some questions? Some questions, exactly.
Can I grab one of the microphones?
Yeah. Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions? I think that's all.
Hi, I kind of get the impression over the years that DCMS and the education department haven't really collaborated very well with regard to pushing the creative industries. Would that be a true-ish statement?
Up to a point. I mean, government departments never collaborate well with each other anyway. I mean, we have a Victorian government structure which doesn't work in the 21st century, and it only works based on personal relationships. So luckily, when I was the culture minister, Michael Gove was the education secretary. That may not sound like it was lucky for many of you when Michael Gove was education secretary, but you learn off a blackboard, that's fine. So I managed to get the National Plan for Music Education through Michael, and I managed to get coding into the curriculum through Michael. But it is true that Michael was very focused on STEM, core science and mathematics skill. It's a constant battle to get creativity and the arts taken seriously in schools. To a certain extent, I always used to defend Michael because it was one of the biggest brickbats I got when I was the culture minister. People would use me as a proxy to attack Michael. I would defend Michael up to a point, which is that, teachers are highly skilled professionals, and there is still a great deal of autonomy and freedom for head teachers to kind of lean into this. And it is, again, I hope this doesn't sound too provocative, it's quite ironic that the most expensive schools in the country, i.e. our public schools, major on arts facilities, and they do it for a reason, because they understand that parents want these kind of opportunities for their children, and they understand that the mix of creativity and kind of hard skills, if I can call it that, of maths and physics. It's an important blend, and you cannot, in terms of the future of our economy, that blend is vital. You know, the success of the video games industry depends on a mix of technical skills and creative skills, and you can't have one without the other.
Any more questions?
Hi, it's Neil Hatton from UK Screen Alliance. Just a quick correction, Ed. There isn't a specific tax credit for visual effects. I don't know what you introduced, but it isn't a specific tax credit for visual effects. In fact, the structure of the current tax credits actually works against visual effects right now because of the 80% cap that was imposed because of EU state aid law. So if you come and spend your $80 million at Pinewood, and you've got $20 million left to spend on visual effects, you're not going to stay in the UK. You're going to go to Montreal where you'll get another 40% tax credit on that. So we're actually losing about £1/3 of £1 billion worth of spend on visual effects every year because of that. And that's the most digital, future-facing part of the film industry, where we've got lots of jobs, the STEAM jobs that Jane referred to, where we could be creating really important jobs that are way beyond media and entertainment, because, you know, the future of entertainment is just one thing in the metaverse, but that also covers, you know, life sciences and all sorts of other spin-offs. And if we're really serious about being world leaders in 3D visualization, we need to protect industries like visual effects and animation.
Good call. I think we tweaked the film tax credit to take account of spend on visual effects. So we incorporated within the film tax credit itself an element of spending on visual effects, which I think hadn't been included in the original film tax credit. But you made a very powerful case, obviously for Brexit. You've made a very powerful case to go to the Treasury for a visual effects, standalone visual effects tax credit. And you're quite right, I have no idea what the situation was in terms of the size of the visual effects industry 10 years ago when we were discussing this. But I'm all for that, and the next time the House of Lords debates it, I'll bring it up.
Thank you. I'm Rebecca, I'm from Film London, and we have a passion for training and also diversity into the industry. My question is really, living here in Beaconsfield, a lot of brilliant young students and opportunity. I mean, my son is 14, he wants to grow up to be a film director, passed his 11+, and I'm really shocked that the schools in Buckinghamshire have no support for creative industries or knowledge at all. And this is a passion of mine. I really want to get into the primary schools and the secondary schools and the grammar schools. And a lot of the cultures there feel if their children are well educated, the creative industries, they're discouraging them from moving into them as they're not a reliable industry to study. And so some of the grammar schools are pushing drama and media out of their curriculum. And I wonder whether you know of any initiatives that are working in this age group at the moment.
I don't. I mean, but it goes back to my earlier point that I think to a certain extent head teachers have a degree of autonomy, and I think a leadership role, as do senior members of the school body. And it seems to me I mean, I don't want to get too controversial, tread on areas where I don't have enough in-depth knowledge, but it would seem to be slightly odd if you have this incredible world-beating industry on your doorstep that you wouldn't want to take advantage of it in terms of exposing your pupils to the opportunities that exist there, because if anyone is incredibly well placed to work in the industry, it's the young people who are growing up in this area.
Hello, sorry. My name's Tim Day. I am a curriculum manager at Buckinghamshire College Group, so we're an FE college up the road, and we do film and TV, audio posts, things like that in a very practical kind of way. So it's exactly the kind of course that would lead on to apprenticeships, traineeships, things like that. I did have another question, but I would like to kind of support that, what the previous question was saying. One of the things that we do have to kind of fight is the idea that by going on to these practical vocational courses, that somehow it's not an academic enough route for some of these students, and sometimes we get people who maybe being pushed onto an A level and then come back and work with us, and they kind of thrive doing the hands-on things, doing these kind of technical things. I've got some of my team with me here today. But
do you have a dialogue with the schools about this?
We have some dialogue with the schools about it, but it's not really the schools, I think, that is the issue for us. I think we sometimes get an attitude with the parents. The students come, they want to do. I've just been at Buck Skills Show,
Exactly.
and we've had a lot of interest in. I was on the music stand because I do music tech area as well as my managerial job, and we had a lot of interest from students. And we quite often have students that they come, they see our facilities, they talk to our team, they talk to my head of film and TV or my head of music tech, and they really want to come. And then they get kind of pulled away to do A-levels. And performing arts, it's maybe an even bigger problem. You know, they come to we can give them really intensive performing arts training, or they can do drama at school and English and history, and it's seen as a kind of safe option. So that's, I'd like to sort of back that up, I think. I mean, we do have educational institutions, not just us, but other educational institutions as well, such as here, doing this training, but it can be quite difficult to get some of the more middle-class parents to accept that doing a skilled technical role is a worthy aspiration for their child. And I find that a slightly sort of strange attitude. I'm kind of, the other question that I had, the one that I was going to actually ask you, I'm sorry for going on. I'll stop.
No, I want people to go on.
Yeah.
This is a highly skilled audience, a well-informed audience. So the more people go on, the better, frankly.
I'm very interested in this interaction of STEM skills and creative skills. I'm doing some academic work on it at the moment as a sort of FE, as an HE thing. This is the sort of staff perk that we get. And what I've been kind of finding, haven't written the thesis yet, but what I've been kind of finding is that problem solving and playing with stuff seems to be really important. Kind of getting into the equipment, mucking about with it, finding things out, making mistakes, and doing that, developing those kind of problem solving skills. If something goes wrong and there's not an instruction manual, you need to be able to kind of develop the nous to fix it on the spot, I guess. And I was wondering about how the people maybe further along the line than us, we teach 16 to 18-year-olds, felt about how we could develop those skills and what we can do to sort of give those kind of, especially, you know, the playfulness and the problem solving go together, and how we can kind of make that work. So I was wondering if anybody had any answers or anything they could say about that.
Well, luckily we've got John here to speak about exactly all this development later.
Yeah. And there's a new college in London, isn't there?
Is anyone getting a microphone to John? I mean, it is. I mean, again, obviously the politician knows absolutely nothing about any of this.
This politician knows a little bit.
I'll just give my kind of dinner party spiel, but it is, you know, I looked after a lot of science in my constituency in Wantage, and we had the Rutherford laboratory, and of course Rutherford famously said, we have no money, so we have to think. And there is that old cliche of, you know, people tinkering in their garden sheds. And I think it is one of the great strengths of education in the UK that we mustn't lose, which is when you compare us to a lot of other countries, we do focus much more on teaching children how to think and problem solve rather than rote learning. And I hope we don't skew too much in the other direction. I mean, I'm looking at my son doing his GCSEs at the moment, and a lot of it is still very much rote learning rather than thinking. Anyway, I think it
I'm interested to hear.
Yes.
Are you John?
Yes.
Yes. Well, you're going to talk about this, but
Take the microphone, John.
I was in a meeting only this week about exactly that, and I can't now remember the name, but there's a new university in London.
John, who are you?
Yeah, my name's John Browning, and I am Workforce Skills Manager for Buckinghamshire Business First.
Brilliant.
And I'm going to be talking a little bit later on about the Local Skills Improvement Plan, which is exactly about bringing employers and training and education providers together to solve some of these problems.
Yes.
But I'll save that for later,
Okay.
if that's okay.
Okay.
But my point was
You've
actually
teed up John.
was actually specifically about the problem solving, that the combination of science and art is a way of helping people, and not just kids, the rest of us in our lives. And I mean, you all know this, but special effects, there you go in there and you see people with arts degree, arts A level and science A level, GCSE. And that's what brings together the wonderful dragon that moves and speaks and so on. It is such a no-brainer.
There's somebody who wants to speak in the audience.
Oh, sorry.
One more question.
Oh, right. Sorry.
Well, it was David
Badly
Wheeler from,
chaired.
David Wheeler from Middlesex University, teaching film and television and indeed digital media video. Just to speak to what the gentleman was saying about making it fun and playing and how do we do this. But many of the film production courses and TV production courses around universities, ex-film schools and so on are using experiential learning, and learning by doing is a massive thing. Students love it. Staffordshire had a good mix of A-level and BTEC students, and so there's an awful lot of that going on. You know, we need better links with industry, and there's a lot of work going on in that area with Eddie McCaffrey, especially from Middlesex and myself also. And I am very much aware that there's not enough careers advice in school, well, careers and understanding in schools, so that's a big area we need to work on.
It's not just careers advice, it's advice to parents about
Yeah,
the potential
The education of the parents.
of these careers. But anyway, let's end with our longest serving minister.
What do you want to end me with?
Oh, just say how wonderful it is being whatever you are of Marlow.
Well, I'm president of Marlow Film Studios, but my greatest honour is my involvement with Star Wars, and I'm going to tell you a little story which sums up the greatness of how the British government works, which is Kathy Kennedy, who was the most important woman in Hollywood, was coming to London to decide whether or not to film Star Wars in the UK, and George Osborne hosted a special meeting for her on a Saturday morning, and I turned up at 9:30, half an hour early, and knocked on the door of Downing Street to be answered by the doorman. And I said, I'm here for a meeting with the Chancellor of the Exchequer. And he said, I don't know anything about that. And I wandered around Downing Street, and I thought I could have launched a nuclear strike or whatever. I couldn't find this meeting. And then I came back to the door and I said, the Chancellor's expecting some guests. Do you know where they are? I said, yeah, they're waiting in that van outside. I told them to wait in the van outside. So I took the 4 top executives from Star Wars and took them into this meeting with George Osborne, and they agreed to film Star Wars. And then I went to the premiere of the Star Wars film with George Osborne, and I've never seen a more excited young man than the then Chancellor of the Exchequer. And when the film finished, he stood there for a full 15 minutes as the credits rolled until the very last credit, which said, "Thank you, George Osborne."
The power of film.